Welcome to the Marketing Mastermind, a podcast designed to elevate your entrepreneurial mindset and help you take your business to the next level through digital marketing. Join your host, agency owner Hilary Russell, as she interviews experts from around the world, dives into business success secrets, and gives tactical mindset training to help you elevate all areas of your life and business. Ready? Let's dive into another Marketing Mastermind episode.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. Today, we're going to be talking about something that we hear very often and very frequently in a lot of personal development, professional development seminars. I can say for every single one that I've been to, we hear the phrase of "you are the average of the 5 people you spend your time with." Right. And I have a little bit of a different perspective for you on this today. And I have brought in the expert and author of a book on this topic, actually. His name is Patrick Kilner. And Patrick, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Hilary. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, for our listeners, just to give you guys a little bit of background, Patrick has written, he's the author of the book, Find Your Six. And this is a #1 new release on Amazon. Pat is also a speaker. He's a businessman. He's led 3 different companies and has had some experience in the real estate space and lots of experience in helping entrepreneurs and professionals to really elevate their network, right? To elevate these different areas of influence, right? Redefining your influence even. So I'm super excited about this conversation. Pat, this is something that I would say, those entrepreneurs that I have the privilege and opportunity of working with, of coaching, both within, Entre Institute and also within my own agency. This is a very common topic that comes up because I think that, quite frankly, it can be almost intimidating to feel that you need to network and find these different areas of individuals to connect and network with. But there's also so much power behind it. So before we dive in, give us a little bit of window into who Pat is. Give us the background of how you came to writing a book around finding your six.
Well, I'm really glad you started actually where you did, Hilary, with the average of the 5 people. That's often attributed to Jim Rohn, so props to him, because I think what he put in our minds 20 plus years ago was this idea that, who you hang out with matters a lot. I mean, it's just that simple, whether it's your physical life or your entrepreneurial life, your business life, whether you're going on a spiritual journey, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you want to conquer, it's not about a what. Mm-hmm. It's not about, a new tech. It's not about even reading that book. It's about the people you surround yourself with. And if you find the right who, that's going to accelerate you on that path, right? This is why the gym memberships fail. It's because you don't have the right who.
Yeah. It's
not that the gym failed you. So you don't have the people accompanying you. So I'm really glad you started there. As I did research for this project, I sat down with the most experienced people I could possibly find across all sorts of industries, 60, 70 personal interviews, for hours at a time. And my biggest question to them was, who are the people who have been most impactful for you in having the success that you've had? And most of these people were at the end of their careers. And it was a really interesting discovery for me, because in some ways it was a reflection for me as well. Everybody who I spoke to spoke about just a handful of really impactful relationships that they had had. We can think about those as mentors, right? If you're just starting out into business and you want to accelerate really fast, by the way, use this idea behind Find Your Six as a mentorship idea as well. That's an amazing thing, right? We all need those people no matter where we are in our career. Mm-hmm. So you can absolutely use this. This is not just sort of a sales and marketing book. This is a book about mentorship if you look sort of below the surface on it. But what was really amazing is that none of them identified hundreds of people. They all identified, and interestingly, the average was not 5, it was actually 6 over 70 interviews. And I remember just thinking, gosh, this is truly amazing. So I would finish, I'd be there with a pen and pad and we'd be done. And I'd say, do you have any idea how many people that you just referenced? And they go, no, I have no idea. We've been talking for a couple hours. I said, 6. And I said, do you know how many people most people have? And it was almost always 6. So it was really fascinating just to sort of do the research and get in there with people who had amazing careers and led tremendous companies. And frankly, many of whom I was green with envy of what they'd been able to achieve. So, but to get to the question of my path, I, about 20 years ago, finished grad school and got into real estate. And so fast forward, when I first got into the business, like anybody brand new, I'm looking for all of the ways that I'm supposed to generate leads, right? Like if you don't have leads, you're dead, right? So you know that. And so I start at everything I can read, everything I can find, every conference I can attend. And it was all the same stuff across every industry. Friends in the financial planning industry, right? All financial services, legal, everybody was insistent on pounding the phones, scripts, dialogues, right? All of those things, knocking doors, depending on what industry you were, whether figuratively or actually. I can't tell you how many buildings I kicked out of, doing commercial real estate, because apparently that's trespassing. Who knew, right? And so I sort of did all of that, geographic farming, mailing stuff to people's houses, all sorts of all the tricks of the trade that had been passed down. And what I found is that pound for pound, those activities, and hour for hour, those activities were the activities that gave me the least amount of revenue on a monthly and an annual basis versus some of the key relationships that I was very fortunate enough to have, very accidentally, really, early in my career. And once I realized that the ROI on those types of relationships was what I was looking for, mm-hmm. I started aggressively going after those. And that's really, fast forward, that's really what the book is about. What's been really amazing about that is trust is this transferable asset. And so when you have a lot of very shallow relationships, when you spend most of your time doing sort of the speed dating networking that is proposed, right? Like how many people can I go and hand business cards out to at this event, right? That, by the way, I didn't invite the people. They don't know me. I don't know what's being served. I don't know who I'm sitting with the table. I'm going to show up to this thing and it's just going to be, surely there's going to be someone here who's going to change my life. I'm going to show up to this thing, right?
Right.
That is not what I propose here. So that's one form of networking. And that was the form of networking that was proposed to me, right? Chambers of Commerce, all this, and all that stuff can produce a trickle of business. And I did so much of it, it produced enough to actually win me awards with brokerages. Mm-hmm. But it didn't withstand the test of time. What was also interesting is when 2008, 2009 hit, the residential side of things in real estate, all of the people I knew in the office, people have been doing this for 20 plus years, who were only in the sort of what I now characterized in the book as sort of a lead generation mindset, mm-hmm. versus a deeply relational mindset. Almost all of them took an early retirement because all of a sudden the ROI on their time became even worse and it just wasn't worth it. And so, hey, when difficult things happen, right? Disruption happens in markets. And if what I realized in that is that the people that you surround yourself aren't just the people who you become, but they also define whether or not you're going to survive your next disruption. And that's why I'm so passionate about finding the right six, because those right six make you disruption proof.
Interesting. That is extremely interesting, because I think that you touched on a piece here that I think has become a very popular buzzword right now in, marketing and really any industry, and that's becoming recession proof.
Right?
Yeah,
I love that. Yep.
And we've seen
just another form of disruption.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. We've seen in the last couple of years, businesses have almost been forced to scramble, find new ways to reach their audience, to reach their, and connect with their clients, and to connect with prospective leads even. And so that's a really interesting way that you positioned that. Okay. So I'm curious, what is so important about the six? Why the six?
Well, frankly, it's the research, right? The research kind of led me to this, but let's think about this. I mean, if you're a small business owner.
Sure.
Let's say, we were talking about financial advisors earlier on. So you're a financial advisor. There's a few ways you can do this. You can go in and learn all the scripts and dialogues and pound the phones and make your 200, 300 calls a day, auto dialer, right? And that's just churning out leads for you. And you may get some appointments, and that'll be great. And you could do that. My question to you is, how many years are you excited about doing that? Do you see that as a transferable skill for your team long-term as well? And are those relationships, those cold relationships, the types of relationships that if you could curate the perfect relationship that you would have? Or are you just taking the low-hanging fruit, right? So it's one way to think about it. So why are six? Now, let's talk about a different type of thing. Let's say you have a great business-to-business relationship with someone in a related field. Maybe it is somebody in commercial real estate, for example, who deals with entrepreneurs who have their own businesses, who have employees, who need 401ks, all sorts of other things, right? And that person and you just connect. You're able to add value to them because of your financial knowledge, because of the connections you're able to put in front of them, because of maybe sometimes being able to send them a client. Maybe you've really invested into that relationship. And that person on an annual basis sends you 5 to 10 like slam dunk ideal clients. How many of those people do you need? If you had 6 of those people and it was 5 to 10 slam dunk clients, I mean, when you go in and talk to these people, because that person who thinks the world of you and trusts you implicitly tells their friend that you should go talk to Hilary because she's the best thing since sliced bread in the financial industry. How many of those people do you need? Most financial advisors don't need more than 6 people who do that for them, right? Who are raving fans for them. But those are what I call top of the pyramid people for you, right? They're not at the base of the pyramid. The base of the pyramid is where everybody else lives, everybody you know, right? So the other methodology when you come into a business is like, tell all your friends and family that you're in this. Surely they trust you. Yeah, they trust you, but not as a financial advisor yet because they know you're new, right? They trust you, but not as a great marketing person because they know that you're cutting your teeth in a new industry. So look, eventually they'll work with you. I never, especially when I was earlier in my business, I couldn't stand when I walked into somebody's house or into somebody's commercial property and I felt as though they were doing me a favor. I wanted to be there because I was darn good at what I did, because I was going to work my tail off for you, right? And you want to be referred because you're awesome at what you do, not because, hey, I did this person a favor. Right? That's not a referral type of relationship that you're building there. So how many do you need? You can back into it. if I had 6, frankly, if every person in the real estate side had 6 really awesome people, we would not have people churn through this industry like they do.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can look at all industries and just go, yeah, it's like a 1 out of 10 actually survive past 5 years in so many cases, right? Why do 50% of businesses fail within the first 3 years? It's because they don't have their 6. We blame it on the market, disruption, the dollar, whatever it is, right? But the reality is, if you had those people in your life who didn't just care about you, but also had the influence to impact your business, it's kind of amazing what you can do. I'd say that the other reason is because businesses that develop this type of influencer paradigm actually scale. So if you don't want to be the person pounding the phones every day for the rest of your life, and you want a scalable methodology, because trust is transferable, you can actually bring other great people into your organization and hand off relationships to them, and then go find another 6, which is a really, really cool thing that I've been very fortunate to be able to do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I want to maybe provide a little bit more clarity around that. What do you mean by trust is transferable?
I'll give you an example. I've got a friend who, for years, worked in legal services. So this is before legal, before dossiers, were transferred electronically, right? So he did all the document storage, all the printing, all this stuff for court cases and that sort of stuff, right? And he was probably the number one person in the DC area at what he did, and he led a really big team of people before all of this went online. And the company still exists, and he's now since retired out of that. But one thing that was really interesting that he told me, he said, Pat, my biggest client I landed because I won over the lady at the front desk who had been there for 30 years. And what was interesting about her is that we happened to build this kind of fun relationship, and I figured out kind of what she needed. And in any event, she knew where all the partners were at any point, if they were having marital problems, what they had for lunch that day, and could get you the appointment with the partner, and the partner would take it because she set it up. Because she had that type of trust with the partner. And so that one person opened for him the biggest account that he had in his city, which is amazing, right? So that's what I mean when that's a sort of a mini example, right? Of somebody who, I oftentimes say in organizations, you're looking for people who have an ownership mindset. She didn't own the company. She wasn't a partner, but she owned her role, and everybody trusted her as a result of that. Right. And she had been there for a long time. So there's those 3 elements that I talk about this in the book. Deep trust is founded on longevity and an ownership mindset. And if you can find people who have those 3 things, it's game over. The other thing that I found for me is that people who are in growth phases of their company, if you're trying to grow your company, and people that you're connecting with at this level, you're looking for those 3 things. If they also are in a growth phase, it's dynamite. It's really cool. If you're trying to network with people who've already made it in their own minds, they're coasting.
Sure.
And so when you send them an opportunity to connect with somebody or do business, or even a book, it's like, yeah, it's really nice, but I've kind of read all the books. I've got all the connections. I don't need it. People in growth phase is a totally different place. So that's how trust really does transfer. Another is I had a great friend who I learned this from early. I respected him. I was a young professional. I sat down with him and said, listen, I can see there's a big disruption coming for my industry. You've survived all sorts of stuff. You've been in business for 40 years, grown an amazing company. How have you done it? And so I just took copious notes, and he, was graciously generous with his wisdom. At the end of the conversation, he said, Pat, you're going to do really well at real estate. I was like, we haven't talked about real estate the whole time. But he said, you know how I know that? It's because you've asked the right questions. You've been asking really, really great questions. He said, I want you to meet 3 of my friends. And then he connected me with 3 other business owners, 2 of whom ended up doing business with me. But he didn't set it up, hey, you've got to talk to Pat so you can do real estate business. You got to talk to Pat because he's a great professional. I see big things in him. I think you all are going to have an amazing conversation. Boom. And so that it was a great connection. But because he put his name to me, I was introduced to really influential people. And so trust is transferable in that way. So people say to me, well, I'm new in a city. I don't know anybody. You don't need to know a ton of people.
Yeah.
Because trust is transferable.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that that's helpful too, in the sense that I think that individuals, especially when you're in the early stages of starting a business, I would say that the majority of concern comes from where are leads going to come from, right?
Yeah.
How am I going to get leads? How am I going to get these things coming in? And especially in our day to day, we're about convenience, right? About quick turnaround times and immediate gratification. Exactly. Yep. Right. And so that being said, I think that oftentimes as business owners looking at lead generation strategies, you think of, well, run ads, run, these different pieces. And there's value behind those. But I love this concept because honestly, it's working smarter, not harder.
100%. 100%. We have a mantra in my firm that I actually put into the book, and it's, spend your professional time, effort, and money with the most influential people when you walk out that door or put on your headset and go to work, right, in your home office, so that you can spend your time, effort, and money in your personal life with the people most important to you, right? So it's efficiency of movement. It's not about doing more work or that work paying off later.
Right.
It's about being a magnet to business versus chasing business constantly.
Interesting. Yes, that's a beautiful concept too, because honestly, it's kind of like the law of attraction in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in those opportunities.
Right. Well, and frankly, unless you are, right, it kind of goes back to the Jim Rohn idea. Unless if you are becoming the people that you hang out with, and I call them influencers in the book, if you become an influencer, you don't know influencers who want for business in your community. They just, it doesn't happen. They're indispensably important to the success of other people around them. And they look like they're having a blast at it all of the time. You're like, what must that look like? That's so cool. And we think they paid their dues by doing all of these calls and, all of giving people things that they don't really need so that they don't forget my name. No, that's not what they did. That's not what my research told me. And that's certainly not what allowed me to get through recessions and disruptions in my industries. So I can't encourage people enough that this is actually not the slow path. This is the fast path. And, my question as I learned about these 6 over the course of an entire career, the question I asked is, what if you could find your 6 in 6 months or a year? And so there's a question of methodology there. There's like, if you have a system for it, these people all did it accidentally. What if I could purposely, non-accidentally go and find my 6? And that's what the second part of my book is all about, giving you a system to go find your 6. So you can do it fast. I'm impatient. I want this to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask a little bit if you wouldn't mind sharing, because I think that's the next natural question, right, that I have and that I'm sure our listeners have is, how do I find my 6?
Yeah. So We can get very, very granular here, but I'll give you sort of broader strokes. Later on, by the way, on my website, I've got a challenge that people can do. And I walk you through some of this, even without reading the book. Like, you want to read the book? Awesome. I give away a lot here. The book is a really good guide. And I wrote it for somebody who can sit on an airplane for 3.5 hours and just get through the whole thing, and boom, you've got it. But how do you find him? I was talking to a young entrepreneur just yesterday. He was asking the same questions. Where do I find these people? I'm brand new, just got out of school, but his biggest dreams ever, super smart young guy. And but he doesn't know where to start. And I said, do you think you can, who are all the people that you know currently? And so make a list of all the people that you know. How many of them have been in their industry for a while or spend a lot of time with their clients per capita? So one of the things that I want to know is, if you're spending a lot of time with your clients, you're building a lot of trust. So I'm looking for that. Well, I don't know many of those people because I'm relatively new in town. Okay, but I've got 2 of those people. Great. So they're on your list. Who of those people would you trust implicitly to ask for advice? I mean, if they give you advice, you would go and do it, right? On almost anything. Okay, there's a few more people in there. Who of those people, have an approach to work that is not sort of hang it up for the weekend, right? Sort of a transactional relationship with their work. Gosh, that eliminates about 70% of the people. But there are some people who really, they show up to work and they don't know anything but just, sort of, they bring it home with them. And as entrepreneurs, that's kind of what you need. Whether you're the person at the front desk, right? And that can be a very entrepreneurial space as well. And we want, growing businesses need entrepreneurship at every level of the organization as well. But those are some of the ways to think about it. But start with the people that you know. What's really interesting is when you start with those people. Okay, well, I don't know enough people. I need to go fill that pot of people. Hey, go and find the young professional network in your area. But when you go to that young professionals network, think about those 3 things: longevity, the type of trust, and the approach to work that people have. And be a sleuth for finding that type of talent. Because you're in the talent game now. That's what I told him. I said, you are now in the talent game. You may think that you're starting a marketing company, but you're actually in the talent game that happens to trade marketing services. And he got it. It was you sort of see the scales fall off the eyes. And so as you go, you can go to the Chamber of Commerce, but you have to look at people this way. You can go to that BNI group, but you have to look at people this way. Because the majority of those places, right? Again, think about a pyramid. Majority of those places have people that are highly transactional, that have sort of a work it mindset to things instead of an own it mindset. They don't spend much time with the client. They spend less than a day with clients instead of 30 days or more with a client. And so if you're looking at talent through that lens, then you're going to sift through and find the people that you should go spend time with.
Right.
So that's the first way. So, talent is abundant. Anybody who's hired knows, at least I know, what happens when you hire out of pain, right? Like you hire the first person that you come across because you just need to fill that role. That stinks. And that doesn't typically work out. If it does, that's really lucky. You're looking for a 1 in 20 talent here to sit at the top of your pyramid. And internally, we should honor our own businesses this way as well. When I'm looking for internal talent, I need people that are indispensably humble, hungry, willing to put in the time and the work, and who I think are top tier talent, top shelf talent, who think this way, who want to own it, right? I'm not intimidated by people who want to own my company. That's great. I just have to fire myself and get out of their way. That's great. So that would be the approach, is look there. Because now think about concentric circles, right? You find those people who have typically very high emotional IQ as well, will, like my friend, introduce you to your next level of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes you have to prompt that. I never left a meeting after that meeting that I mentioned to you. I never left a meeting without saying to somebody, knowing what you know about me at this point, who else do you think I should talk to? It wasn't this, hey, do you think you could introduce me to those people over here? Right? Too direct. Give people freedom to think about knowing what you know about me. That's a reflective question. Let them come and save you. Let them come and help you. Right? A little bit of old school Sandler for you guys in the financial world, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Let them come and help you, right? And hey, knowing what you know about me, who would you talk to if you were in my shoes? Let them be generous with you, right? And that's the difference between a lead gen mindset, which is like go for the jugular, get them to do what you want to do, versus leading people. It's much, there's this great, I think it was Churchill quote of, it's much, much easier to lead than to drive, right? People. I don't want to be in the business of driving people. I want to lead them to where I hope they'll go. And if I've added enough value in that conversation because of the types of questions I ask, all the better.
Right.
So that's how I look at it. And what's amazing about that is when you're asked that type of question, you prepare well for your meetings. You're not just having coffees, sort of, these are business meetings, and you're showing up with very, just like your great podcast host, right? With great curated questions that understand what that person has to offer to you and your audience, right? Your clients. Man, the conversation gets so much better.
True.
They want to connect you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good point too, that, regardless whether it is a business conversation, a conversation with a mentor, or really any type of relationship dynamic, it's about asking the right types of questions. Right. I appreciate too, the example that you gave of how to ask for those introductions, because I think that is a part too that many individuals almost shy away from, because you don't want to come off as, self-serving or anything like that. But at the same time, you are trying to, grow your professional network or grow the bottom line for your business even, right?
Absolutely. And they can't feel that though.
Sure.
Right? Like people will open doors for you. You have to actually believe that. You actually have to believe that people are inherently generous if given the opportunity. If you believe that people are simply a means to your success, this does not work. And actually, it's a whole lot less fun. And that's, in the book, I talk about that. And I phrase it as the lead gen mindset, right? What's really wild, as I did the research for this book, it turns out that we didn't actually even write the word lead gen, or the phrase lead gen or lead generation in the world of marketing or sales until the year 1976. It wasn't even in what we wrote. So it's a relatively new concept, right? People have been doing business, trading, their skills and goods for years, but we didn't actually use it. It's just a relatively new thing. And, so post 1976, think about what happens in the financial world. We go like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Selling penny stocks, pound the phones, scripts, dialogues. These are all things that you can teach somebody who doesn't actually know their craft. They just have to know enough to get on the phone and say the right thing. The reason why that becomes disruptable is because now AI can do it longer and better than you. And it learns faster than you. So you don't actually need the human element anymore. What actually makes you indispensable in your business, disruption proof, if you will, is the right relationships and an excellence at your craft that is really deeply fulfilling as well. Like nobody gets into business like, I can't wait to fake it.
Right.
I can't wait to fake it till I make it even. No, everybody gets into business like, I want to be really stinking good at what I do. Because we all desperately want that. As a dad, like I want my kids to know I'm actually good at what I do. Not that just like, hey dad, shows up and fakes it until there's some money comes in the door.
Yeah.
So it's a question of fulfillment as well. And that's why I ask the question to folks, can you see yourself doing that lead gen thing that has produced some money for you this year for the next 3 to 5 years, and being more excited about doing that at the end of that time frame? And the almost unanimous answer is absolutely not.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask, okay, if you have kids, would you teach this to your kids so that they can have a more deeply fulfilling career? And like, of course not, right? So why are we spending time doing it if that's the case?
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, I've spoken with so similarly, I think that successful entrepreneurs have this tendency to search out, research, study the stories, the background of other successful individuals throughout history, right? And I would say that is one of probably the most common attributes of successful people is doing what they like to do, which sounds almost silly, right? Because of course you would do what you like to do, but I think it's more than that. It's searching out those opportunities, saying yes to the things that you are actually passionate and interested in, and then saying no to the ones that you're not, right? And it's exactly what you're saying is, why would we continue to do these monotonous tasks on an ongoing basis, relying on the numbers game, relying on the, XYZ, versus leveraging those human relationships, those natural relationships that are available to us.
Right. Well, and another way to think about it potentially is, why would I do something that can be imitated by someone who isn't great at the craft or technology?
True.
Because if you really like, again, that's why people won't give it to their kids.
Right.
And it's not to say that there can't be like, look, these things are hard, and there is something worthwhile about getting good at actually saying the words that need to be said to a client early in your career. That's fine, but it doesn't have to be in that context necessarily. And when I'm speaking to young entrepreneurs or young people getting to consulting or whatever it is, a big part of my advice is the environment one in which you can learn voraciously from? You need to get an MBA every 2 to 3 years for the rest of your professional career, one on top of another on top of another. And the only way that happens is through great people, because you run out of books to read. And it compounds and it builds on itself. It's like compounding interest. So, back to the mentor thing, right? If you find your 6 early enough in your career from a mentorship standpoint, the rest is basically taken care of. Because again, like compounding interest, human relationships compound and actually grow exponentially. And they connect you. What do you give the person who has everything in business? They don't need the next, fancy device or anything like that. What they need is wisdom. Right. What you'll find is that the most influential people, actually, they trade at the level of wise counsel or wise ideas, right? It's not, information is ubiquitous. You can Google it, right? Knowledge is just one step past that, right? AI actually fakes true knowledge, right? And so people can't even discern that. What they're looking for is someone to distill those things, information and knowledge, and give it to them in a way that they can't get it otherwise. That's what makes you disruption proof. So unless your career is going towards wisdom, right? And who's the greatest wisdom distributor? It's great minds, right? Then again, if you're in the talent game looking for those great minds every single day, that's your job, that's your business. You won't grow as fast. You don't grow as fast. You won't become disruption proof. So, it really is. And it just makes life and sort of the growth of our careers that much more fun to surround ourselves with these types of people, and actually ultimately to be this to other people as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a very good point too, that if you are, giving opportunities or so, and you mentioned this beforehand too, right? You have to come into the relationship or come into that dynamic with good intentions, with the intentions of wanting to
Authenticity.
provide value. Yeah, authenticity. But that being said, by you being willing to share value and to share connections or to share these different pieces, by default, those people around you will want to share those things with you as well.
Yeah. And people sniff out inauthenticity so easily.
Right.
And so that's why you have to take these are almost sacred sort of gems, these relationships. People realize when you don't actually dignify them with that.
Mm-hmm.
And really busy people, really influential people don't have time for anything that's non-authentic. And so, but frankly, I've had the opportunity to sit down with amazing people, and it's just by asking, frankly, asking for advice is one of the most authentic things you can do because it's inherently humble.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to ask for the right advice at the right time of your career. Like for me, it's harder for me to just say, I can't say, hey, I'm just starting out. I'd love to know what made you successful, right? But I can't say, hey, I've got this new concept I've been working on to help my team grow. I'd love your advice on whether you think it has legs or not, right? So-and-so tells me you'd probably be able to give me some insight. I'd love the opportunity to come meet you. I'll come to you.
Mm-hmm.
What just happened there? You came to them with specificity. Specificity is very authentic. When somebody goes, hey, I'd love to pick your brain, they're not being authentic.
Right.
Because they're not being specific. And so they haven't given you they haven't dignified you enough with thinking about why it is that they would want to meet with you. And that's the other thing I'll tell young people getting into a business. So, okay, these people, make another column. What one question are you deeply interested in asking this person about? If you can't answer that, then the conversation is not going to flourish.
Right.
So curiosity is very essential to being authentic.
I love that. Yeah, being teachable. It's almost being childlike, being so curious and just wanting to learn as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great mindset for, any individual, not just the particular 6, but any individual that you're coming into contact with. There's always something new to learn from those conversations.
Yeah.
We just have to ask for it. Right.
And it's always an honor when somebody asks for your advice. Like you've never had somebody go, hey, can I have your advice? Especially when it's specific and you go, I'm completely offended that you would ask me for it. Like nobody says that, right? That's not because we're honored about that. Right.
That's such a good point. Pat, I'm so excited about this conversation because I think that it really is, it's such a principle-based method for growing business and for even, growing yourself personally to hitting those next levels. But I think it's almost something that, or a method or strategy that has maybe gotten lost a bit in our digital world, right? So
it's easy. I think, the quick fix is always out there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, okay, tell us a little bit, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and perspective on all of these different pieces. But share with us a little bit more about the Find Your 6 challenge. What is that?
Yeah. So I just, as I have been coaching within my organizations, I realized that, people need a methodology and it needs to be spelled out in, just a few pages. And so what I did is I offer that on my website, and it's a 6-week challenge that allows you to sort of chart your meetings with people, whether you think they're going to be the type of people that will be at the top of your pyramid, your influencer pyramid, if you will. And a little bit of a challenge each week of your mindset on this stuff, because it's really the adoption. It's as much an adoption of a mindset as it is a habit. And so those two things come together in the Find Your Six Challenge, which you can download on my website.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I'm excited to check that out. And
Absolutely.
Of course, the book is available there for purchase as well. Find Your Six, which I love that too. I love that you wrote it in the method of giving someone a short enough time span to learn the most important things they need to know about this method. So amazing. Thank you so much, Pat, for joining me today. I've absolutely loved this conversation, and I am excited to check out the challenge.
Hilary, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, rate our show, and share with your friends on social media. You can also join our community by visiting us online at marketingmastermindpodcast.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.